my name is Leland Kaisley, and most people call me Lee. But anyway, this is supposed to be about my military experience. So I went in the Marine Corps in January of 1943. I went to boot camp in San Diego, recruit depot, and then went to Camp Pendleton for advanced training, which was mainly in demolition. And I went overseas June 25th. We left. 28 days later, we got in Melbourne, Australia. It was a slow ship, little one. And anyway, we were there for a month, and I had one liberty because we were loading ships, and then we shipped out up to Goodenough Island, which is by New Guinea, and it wasn't too bad a place, except we had washing machine Charlies once in a while.
What's washing machine Charlies?
The washing machine Charlie was a plane that would come over at night, a bomber, and he would stay as long as he could. He'd buzz around and round and round, and he sounded like a washing machine sometimes. That's why they call him washing machine Charlie. And when he was getting ready to run out of fuel, he would take a swoop down and drop some daisy cutters, which, if he hit anything, did a lot of damage. Because one time, we were in another place, and they came right through our camp, and we were sleeping in jungle hammocks. And of course, when we heard the bomb start, then we'd wait. We couldn't get out of our hammocks and stay too long. It was raining most of the time or bad weather, but he was still up there. So anyway, when we heard the bombs hear them start to dive, we'd run for cover hole. And anyway, he dropped them right through it. And then one guy got a little scratch on his forehead. But these bombs go off a couple feet above the ground and just scatter. That's why they call them daisy cutters. There's any grass around that just mows them. So, but anyway, our hammocks looked like the moss had eaten them. So, anyway, that's washing machine Charlie, which because we ran into in several islands. And so anyway, after New Guinea, we were in Goodenough Island, and we went up to New Guinea by Finchhaven, as they call it. We call it Finchhaven, but I didn't know any better. And you could see that the Cape Gloucester, which is on a big island in New Britain, but that was the southern tip, and it was volcanoes. We could see the volcanoes. It wasn't that far across. So after a month, they call that a staging area. And after a month, we went over and landed on Cape Gloucester, which was really no opposition. And I was a flamethrower then, and the rainforest, as they call the jungle, got to us because we were going through water up to our waist and climbing over down trees and everything. And I'll tell you, we couldn't keep up, but there was no opposition to our direction either. Anyway,
what's a flamethrower?
Flamethrower is a thing you call on your back. It weighs 70.7 pounds. I remember that yet. And it shoots a flame, and they got napalm later, would put out a narrow stream, would go a long way, but we would mix gasoline and oil, and it would go about 35 yards and put out a great big wide billowing flame. And anyway,
you
didn't have to use it.
Well, that's good. Now, is the show MASH anything like what you experienced?
Pardon?
Do you know the show MASH on TV that depicts the World War II history? Is that anything like what you actually experienced?
Well,
or is that just Hollywood?
Movies are kind of staged, and you don't see much. You see some actual footage. You don't see too much of the Pacific.
Right.
And the Marine Corps had combat correspondents, and they took lots of movies, but I've never seen them published. After each campaign we were on, they would show them to us, and you could see a lot of familiar things then. But mostly movies show everybody bunched up and all that, and we didn't. You're not supposed to bunch up, and we didn't too much anyway. You keep your space, right?
Did you, while you were serving the military, the Marines, were you awarded any medals?
The only thing I got was 2 Purple Hearts.
Well, that's quite a bit.
Right. To get a medal, you have to be in the right place at the right time and have somebody, some big officer see you. Like a good friend of mine got a big medal because he was doing what most of all of us did, but he got a Navy Cross, which is right next to a Congressional Medal of Honor, because he saw a colonel was watching him. So anyway, so lots of us peons, grunts, or whatever you want to call us, didn't. But I was actually a combat engineer. So we had everything from bulldozers to flamethrowers, bazookas, and machine guns. And then after this first campaign, which I was on 2 more major ones, I was strictly demolition, outside of being a machine gunner when we ran out of demolitions. So that was my experience there. So.
Have you, was there anybody in your family that kind of pushed you towards the military, or?
No, that's one of those things. My high school friend, you know, said, hey, let's join the Marines, and I didn't even know much about it, so I got checking into it, and I said, that sounds okay. So, excuse me, so we went down and signed up together, but he wanted to wait a while, and that was the summer of '42, so we took a date to come in December. So we took, I was a paramechanic in those days, and I took 2 Model A Fords and made one out of them, because this is wartime, you know, started already, and things were hard to get, parts and tires, all that, but I combined 2, and we took off and spent a month out, and we went, he was from Santa Fe, New Mexico, but we traveled all over, well, Southern California and Arizona. We went up to the Grand Canyon, rode the mules down. In those days, there was 1 mule train went down. Now there's dozens. Anyway, so we went down on the mule train. That was in November. This was the month of November we were going. And we went down to Carlsbad Caverns, and then we went to New Mexico and went to Santa Fe, where he lived before, and he knew a few people. And then we went out to Madrid, as they called it, same as Madrid, but that was a mining town, and his grandparents lived there, a little town out in east in New Mexico. And then we went out to one of his uncle's ranches, which was one of those that had probably a few thousand acres of mostly nothing on the border of Texas. And we'd go out and hunt jackrabbits with them. He used to sit on the fender and I'd drive. We'd shoot at him with a .22. Had a few good experiences with that, and then he had horses. And in fact, they kept 1 horse in there, so his uncle went out and rounded up 2 more, brought them in so we could all ride.
What did your mother and father think about you joining the military?
Well, my mother was dead, but my father, you had to talk him into it. You know, you had to get a permit for 17. You had to get your parents' permission. So he was living down in Los Angeles then, and I was living with relatives up in Berkeley. And so I took the train and the bus and went down there and get him to sign the papers, and came back and turned him in. Mm-hmm. So actually it turned out I was 18. Well, I didn't tell you about going in. When we got back from this trip, we go there was our date to go in, and a couple days before they stopped enlistments. So that didn't apply to 17-year-olds, but applied to anybody 18 or over was eligible. So the recruiter says, all you 17-year-olds go home and we'll call you. So they took my friend, see, and I didn't go. So I went home, and heck, I got time, so I went to work in the shipyards. And so I had to sign up for the draft right off because I'm 18. And boy, a few weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later, I get my notice to go for a physical. So my day off in the shipyards, I went back over to San Francisco with the recruiting office, and I said, you guys want me or not? Because the Army's after me. They said, come in tomorrow. So I had to go back and go out to Richmond and quit my job and get my check and all that kind of stuff, and the next day I was gone. So that was January 29th, 1943, right?
So did you see a lot of action while you were in the military?
I saw more than I needed. Yes, especially on Peleliu, that was a real bad one. And we were in the first wave, and we were in Amtrak's, and they won't let you see it. They want you to keep down because there's shells landing around us and everything, and even some air bursts, but keep down, so we couldn't even see what was happening. But our Amtrak got stuck on the reef. They stalled it, and we're pointed up like this, and they're dropping shells all around us. And we said, "Oh, we're going to have to walk, you know," and this reef is quite a ways out. But anyway, got the thing started again, and we headed in, and we landed. We didn't land on a beach. We were supposed to land on a beach, but they're supposed to take you in a ways on the Amtrak. We landed against a little kind of a coral bank cliff. It was vertical. So anyway, I'm the first guy up. Well, we had our old Amtraks too. You didn't have ramps. You had to jump off the top of them, you know, and that's about 7 feet up. And you land in a knee-deep water, and there's uneven, there's chunks of coral and everything in there, so you fall down naturally. Lucky I didn't turn my ankle. But anyway, I was the first one up, and when I got up looking all over, I could just see fire and smoke from all the shells from ours and theirs, because our ships were shelling right over us. And anyway, I had a Tommy gun, and it knocked my magazine out. And I said, "Whoa!" And so I went back down to reload, and by that time some of the guys had gone up, and they said, "There's a gun right over here," and it was firing right down the beach where we were supposed to land. And we looked over there, and there's burning Amtraks all down there, where this gun was an anti-tank gun. And see, it was below us, it was just above the water, and it was covered, there were concrete, but it was covered with coral, so they couldn't see it from the air. They put chunks of coral on it. And anyway, so we had all had 20-pound charges, and there was 10 of us. We put all our charges on top of it, and that took care of it. And anyway, so we started out. Well, anyway, by the time the airport was we landed by the airport. I don't think it was 200 yards from us. By the time we got there was 4 of us left. And then we were kind of at a good place down, because the airport, the end of the runway was right higher than us, and so we were kind of protected from all the fire in the airport. So anyway, but there's shells landing around us and all this kind of stuff, you know. All of a sudden, here comes this tank from behind us. Well, it wasn't one of ours. It was a Jap tank, and he ran over one of our guys. He wasn't too bright. He didn't have sense enough to get out of the way. So anyway, so we ended up with 3 of us. And so anyway, the next morning, they said, "Okay," they get us all together. And first of all, asked us if we'd take a machine gun, because they'd lost. We were attached to a company of infantry, just one squad, 10 of us. And anyway, we didn't have any more demolitions, and they'd lost several of their machine gunners, so they asked if we'd take a machine gun. Well, our assistant squad leader who would take a machine gun training said, "Okay, well, you guys want to do it?" There's the other 2, he asked us. Okay, so he asked me, "Do you want to be the assistant?" And I said, "That sounds good." And I didn't realize I got to carry the machine gun. And I already had a Tommy gun and 2 carriers, 100 rounds of ammunition. I was loaded. So, and he carried the tripod, a light one, wasn't much, and they both carried a belt, machine gun belt over around their neck, you know, because they come in a box, but I don't know where that went, but they carried it around their neck, the other 2 guys, and I carried the machine gun. And we had a nice second lieutenant get up there and says, "Okay, men, let's go." Everybody, we looked across an airfield, and shells were falling and bullets were bouncing across, and It didn't look too good. He had to encourage us a few times before we started out. And once you start, you're committed, you know. So what you do is it was hot. It was getting real hot. And they claimed it was way over 100 degrees. And anyway, you run and see, there was some bomb craters. They were small. There were no great big craters, but they were small and just enough to get down in. There were, I don't know what kind of bombs they dropped. But anyway, we'd get up and run for the next hole we could find and jump in there and take a break. And of course, if you looked at that field when you got up and running, you know, there's hundreds of maybe thousands of guys crossing all across, and it looked like hardly anybody was out there. So it wouldn't make a good Hollywood film at all. So, because you each get up and go a ways and go down. So I was in the hole by myself because we got separated. And I start to get up, and I'm getting shot at. Bang! So I ducked down. I tried a couple times, you know. And so next thing, the other guy, our third guy, his name was Ferraro, by the way. The other guy, the first guy was Shaw, myself, and Ferraro. And anyway, he jumped in the hole beside me, and he says he's in that airplane. And here's an airplane with all kind of falling apart. And I thought nobody would be stupid enough to be in there. So we're not supposed to stop and fool around. In the Marine Corps, when you're attacking, you want to attack. You don't stop and fool with anything. Even bypass caves and everything else, and the guy's following, you're supposed to take care of it. So I says, okay, I'll empty my Tommy gun, and I'll jump up and empty my Tommy gun into it, and we'll run, which we did. And anyway, all three of us made it across the airfield. But lots of guys didn't. I saw guys go down all over the place. So, and then when they would get across it, they set us up with our machine gun where the runway went into was kind of a jungle there. And right there in the middle of this nice white, it was coral. They didn't have paper, they had packed coral was the runway. And here we're trying to dig in, and the mortars kept after us. Every time we'd dig a while in the mortars to start landing, we'd run. There was a ditch over on the side. We'd run for the ditch. And then when they could see us, because as soon as we run, they stopped. And so we didn't get much of a hole. We kept digging, and I'm lucky I had a little pick that didn't have that shovel, because this is hard coral. And we'd pick away, and then when we go over the ditch, we'd bring back some chunks of coral with us. But here we are in this nice white runway with a big black. In fact, it was a water-cooled machine gun, which is heavier yet. But we didn't have the water. We didn't have the tanks. They have a tank and a hose that goes with it, you know, so you can fire longer without burning it up. But we didn't have the rest of the equipment. But I know when I was going across that airfield, I was trying to shake all the water out of it I could get because it was heavy. Anyway, we survived all of that. And actually, when we were there, you know, guys would walk around and stuff because we'd only get attacked occasionally. And here's a guy walking across the airfield and stopped to talk to us. And we were down in our hole picking away. And he, all of a sudden, wham, we had a dive bomber coming right over us. And a whole cartridge hit him in the leg, almost took his leg off. And that was the gunner and the dive bomber clearing his machine gun, evidently. And those dive bombers were good, I'll tell you. They would drop bombs so close to you, really scary. I'm not kidding, because they drop them from behind. And they see that big bomb coming, or a napalm, like a big drum coming at you, and you couldn't help ducking. So, but anyway, this guy got hit, really knocked down, and almost took his leg off. So, of course, we hollered corpsman, and the corpsman over on the side come running out and started taking care of him. But anyway, we go on, and we're cleaning. Demolition men were highly in demand because the Japanese were all in caves and tunnels and everything, and they did not come out and counterattack us, and we were just hoping they would. So that's what I did, lots of blowing up.
Did you ever get involved in the USO? Was the USO?
Where we were, we did not have USO, Red Cross, or anything. Oh, I can tell you another story. We had a rest camp on Bavuvu, which was, the story is they saw it from the air and thought it'd be a good place. Well, it turned out it was horrible. It was coconut groves and nice green grass underneath. Well, as soon as we got there, it all turned into mud. You know, start moving in, and there was rats all the time, and then they had the crabs, they call them coconut crabs, swarmed over everything. I was lucky I wasn't there then, because I was out in another island when the crabs came. But they stacked them up, burned them, did everything else with them, and they just kept coming and coming and coming. And it turned out to be a horrible place. Well, anyway, at the end of Peleliu, I lasted 26 days. Ferraro was hit in the leg and evacuated. Shaw was hit across the back of the neck with a bullet that killed our platoon leader. And I survived all this and thought I was pretty much immune. So here we're cleaning up October 11th, and we landed the 15th. So I was there about 26 days or something. And I just blew up one cave. In fact, I went in it, found a machine gunner. They back in, and there's this guy with a machine gun back in there about 30, 40 feet. You know, you just had a narrow field of fire out there. And there was other caves around, and that's how they just kind of interlink, you know, protect each other. Well, anyway, the guys told me there's another cave right down over here, was kind of down in a little, oh, it's like a little canyon actually, but it's all bare coral. Because everything, it used to have trees on it, but everything was bombed and shelled so much there was no trees left up there. So I go over and take a look at it. I'm kind of on a rise there, and I'm looking down at it, and I got hit bad. I didn't even know what I was hit with. I thought it was a big truck. But anyway, I was hit and went down. They tell me later, I thought I was hit and turned around and walked back down where it was more protected from where I got hit. And I thought I'd been, I didn't know what I hit with, because I remember hearing mortars, hearing machine guns, and the guys told me the machine gun hit me and I went down, the mortars landed around me, and then I got up. I didn't ever know I was down. And then I walked back. In fact, I was turned around because I remember starting to turn around to go back down to get my charge. So anyway, I walked back down and sat down, and the corpsman attacked me. We're lucky we did have corpsmen with us. And of course, they attack you with the scissors, cut your clothes off first. But anyway, when they took my shoes off and poured blood out of them, I think I was hit pretty bad. So anyway, they patched me up, put me in a basket up there in the ridges. They'd have basket stretchers to strap you in. And two guys, I think it was two, I can't even remember. Sometimes they put 4 guys, but we didn't have many guys out there. We're in a pretty reduced crew. I think about most of our company was out there. Of our 200 men, there was just a few of us left. And there was some infantry. So anyway, they kept getting shot at. We're going back out, for when you're in a bunch, sometimes the snipers won't fire, you know. But we're going back by ourselves. They kept shooting at the stretcher bearers, and every time they get shot at, they drop me, and that hurt. When you're really hurting, they can't give you enough morphine to stop it, really. So, and I got down there, down off of the ridges, and they had a little shelter there, and they picked me up in a Jeep ambulance. And I don't know how far they hauled me, the other side of the island. And I do remember they put me in on top of a big, well, they used to have big packing crates. They weren't crates, actually, big boxes they keep their equipment in. And there was a field hospital there. And they set me down on top of it, and the bullet comes through the side of the tent. This island is small. There's still firing going on. Put me on this, the bullet comes through the side of the tent and hit right underneath me. And anyway, I was in there 6 days because they wouldn't fly me, because I had what they call a sucking wound. I was open on my side. So I was in there, and they had very few people left. In fact, when I was in there, the mess sergeant got hit in the back with a stray bullet, and the doctor got hit in the foot when he was sleeping. So anyway, what the corpsman would do, you could feel your, they call it a hypo, wearing off in 4 hours, and you tolerate, but you'd start hurting and holler, corpsman, and he'd come in there and give me another shot, and they would feed us, but they would bring our chow to us, but they didn't feed us. So I was lucky. I couldn't move my left arm, and the guy right on my right couldn't move his right arm, and so we used to feed each other. And we were in cots in there, and the guys are dying during the night, and they're hauling them out and stuff. So anyway, after 6 days, I got put on a big white hospital ship. And that scared me too, because they took me out in the duck, and the reason they hadn't taken me out before, because the sea was rough. And anyway, I don't know if you know what a duck is, but that's an amphibious truck, like, has wheels on it, with a propeller, you know, because they'll go and land, and then get in the water, the propeller pushes them. So the ship had a landing out on it. Well, anyway, the duck is going way up and down, way up, and so it gets way up, and they hand off my head part. And the guys on the platform, then the duck went down. The guys on the platform had their arms stretched out, trying to hold me, and the guy in the duck, they had arms were straight up, and I'm strapped in, and I said, boy, if I fall in, I'm gone. And anyway, when it came back up, they got me aboard the platform. So I spent I spent a while in that hospital ship.
Did you find that when you came home from World War II that our country did right by you?
Yeah, it was a lot different than it is now. It was a lot different. They didn't have that, PMST, whatever they call it. We just adjusted ourselves. Yeah, and I know I had a few years that I didn't relate to civilians too well. Because here I'd lived for 2.5 years with men only. And I didn't relate to civilians very well. And it took me, actually, till I really got married. I married a great lady. And
where did you meet your wife?
at a carnival. Well, my friend knew her. We were at the carnival and saw her with another couple and stuff, and he goes over there and asked her, you know, if she had any date or anything, and so we got together. And that was it. San Jose Fairgrounds.
And how many years have you been married?
Well, we were married in 1950, and she died in 95. She had a hip replacement, and 2 weeks later she got a blood clot in her lung, and she just died just real quick, just like that. So.
Do you have any family members that also served in the war?
Well, my younger son spent 23 years in the Marine Corps. He's been out about 10 years, I think, now. It makes me feel old when everybody retires. Even my son Mark here is retired, so... Anyway, but he was an officer, though. I was a corporal. That's the best I did, and he was a lieutenant colonel. So, only officer I could really talk back to.
Have you found that there's a lot of this, because of this war that we're going through now, that there's a lot of things that the military don't get that they should be getting when they come home?
Well, to an extent, it's not as bad as it was back in Vietnam. They treated those troops terribly. Yeah.
So when you came home, our government actually honored you as...
Well, no big honor, you know, when you come back months after the war is over, because I was in Okinawa when it ended, and I had enough points, and we were supposed to come home in 2 years, but not if you're fighting, and we were fighting in Okinawa then. And you don't come home, and if you're wounded twice, you're supposed to. So I got wounded in Okinawa, and not that bad. I stayed there, and nobody told us to go home. So then when it was over, they started a point system, because the war was over. You know, by the time we got finished with Okinawa, and the war was over, so they had a point system, and they started playing games with that. And so then our outfit went to China. They went to Tencin, China, but all us guys were supposed to go home. They sent us down to, we were up in northern Okinawa in a kind of a rest camp, supposedly, but we were always working. Being engineers too, we'd be working, so we were building roads and stuff. So anyway, they sent us guys down there and anti-aircraft outfits, and they started sending their own guys home. Whenever there was a ship, you know, they could say each outfit had a few guys could go on it. And None of us are going. In fact, I'm the only guy from the whole battalion was on this one battery, and we're scattered. You know, they scatter anti-aircraft around. So anyway, I says, I think I've got to do something about this. So I hitchhiked around and found some of the other guys, and there was always trucks running around. Okinawa was getting real busy, and the trucks would always pick you up if you're going by. So I could tell you more stories about that, but.
Have you found that the veterans that are coming home now, do they have a different perspective of the way the war is, or than what you experienced?
I really don't know, because I don't know too many of them, and the only ones I have met, because the 1st Marine Division has an anniversary at the down at Camp Pendleton every year at the end of January, and I've been down there and talked to some of them, and they have a good attitude, really. But there's, you know, what they do is when they're wounded, they're coming back. They've been sent back as a casualty, and they just keep them there. And they're say, "What are you doing?" Nothing. And I don't understand what that was all about. But they have a different deal, you know. Now, if they're wounded over there in Iraq or Afghanistan, they're back in the States in 4 days. Well, I was gone 3 months, and they sent me back to my company. I would end up way down in the South Pacific at New Caledonia in the hospital, because I was on that hospital ship, and then that let me off Manus Island, which is up off of New Guinea, and there's a base hospital there, and I stayed there for a while, and then I got another ship and went down to New Caledonia and stayed there for, I don't know, a month or so. And then when I finally got down to putting a Band-Aid over my last hole in me, they sent me back to my outfit. Oh, and that's another story. I got back up there, and the guys they landed me in another island. Then we brought over in a small boat. And anyway, they said, "Look what they built here. They built a big building, the only building on the place there, because we all had tents. And they brought some girls in there. I don't know, I think they were Red Cross girls. And they said, "Well, we're boycotting it." And the reason was, here's, I don't know, probably 20,000 men on this island. All our showers were open. Our heads were open. We'd go nude bathing. In fact, I got tanned enough that my rear end didn't even lighten up for a couple of years afterwards. And they bring these women in there, and everything, they had to close everything. No more nude bathing. And close all the heads, and close the showers. And so I took a walk down there one day and look, and the place is empty, and I see a few girls up there talking to some officers. And whoever thought that idea, I don't know what they were thinking about. How about bringing, I don't know, there was 6 or 7 women, 20,000 men on the island. So,
How long did you serve in the military?
well, I served less than 3 years, really, because, let's see, I went in January 29th of 43, and I got out November 25th of 45.
If you could do it over and you're that 17-year-old again, would you serve in the military?
I probably would.
Would you choose the same branch of service?
Yeah, well, you know what, I thought the best service is the Coast Guard, really, to be in. But I have a friend, I have a couple of close friends that were in World War II. One was in the Navy and the other's in the Coast Guard. Well, the guy in the Coast Guard said, he joined when the war started, and he said he thought he was going to guard the coast. Well, in wartime, they make him part of the Navy, and he served on a troop ship overseas. So, anyway, but right now in peacetime, I think that's a pretty good outfit to be in.
Have you got together with any of your men that you were serving with? Or
Yes, several. Many years ago, I started to go into reunions, and first thing, in fact, I joined the 1st Division Association and put your name in there, and I got a letter from a real close buddy of mine, and he lived in Atlantic City, and he writes me a letter. Come out and visit, you know, and my son, the Marine there, he was in Quantico, Virginia, going to a year-long class, or almost a year, amphibious warfare school. So we were scheduled to go visit him. We were going right within the next week, the wife and I. So we went back there. I called him up, and he says, "Come on up and visit us." So we went up there, and that was the start of it. We started seeing each other all the time. We visited with them a few times, and they'd come out, and we'd go to reunions together, and our wives became good friends. And we've still been going until now. And then this other guy, Ferraro, I was telling you about, I went up, he lived in Long Island, New York. And we went up and visited him for a few days. We didn't go stay with these people, we stayed in a hotel, you know, but then, and then this Shaw, he was in the association, and he was in the Yountville in the California Veterans Home. And so we met with him several times too. And but anyway, both of them have died now.
Are you active?
No, Hansberry. Oh, another one. No, Hansberry's the one. We were in the same company together through the war, and we came home together in the same ship accidentally, because you know they were taking us from these different anti-aircraft battalions. I didn't tell you all the story about finishing. We went up to see the colonel about not getting sent out. And so he says, "I'll take care of that." So he gave them orders. But then they would send us with some of them. They didn't make up for not sending us back. If they sent some of their own people, they'd send one of us with them. So I did get back in the same ship with them. Two guys from our same company. And the other one, in fact, I talked to him. He's older than me. That's Romsky. And anyway, he lives in Wisconsin. He's over 90. I called him up the other day, and he was living with a daughter, but his mind is better. Remember things better than me. So, and he was an old timer. He was in way before the war. He was one of those guys that was in the Depression. He was in the CCC camps, and then went from there to the Marine Corps before the war. A lot of guys had done that. So, and there was a lot of really good men, NCOs and stuff, that had come from the Depression through the CCCs and then into the Marine Corps.
Did you find that, I know today when the military veterans come home, they find that they have a hard time finding jobs and
Well, now they do, I realize that, but you know, we didn't. They talk about how tough things were, but jobs were easy to get. Hell, I was offered several jobs and finally took one. Just went in, another guy and I went, and he was an older brother of a friend of mine in high school, but the friend was in the Army and he wasn't home yet. So we got together and we're running around together, and we just decided to go look for a job. And the employment office has sent me for a couple of interviews, and I didn't think much of the job. So anyway, we went down in Emeryville in the industrial area and started walking down to different business plants. And we went into one and says, "Sure, come to work." So that was in a old cannery they were rebuilding. Del Monte was rebuilding cannery equipment in there. So anyway, we were learning the trade, like mechanics, machinists.
what do you think about the war today that we're in?
I think we don't belong in any of those wars. Iraq was the stupidest one of all. There was no weapons of mass destruction, anything. We had a president, one who looked like a wartime president. In fact, they got him reelected. He's a wartime president now, and everybody knew there was no weapons of mass destruction, but they tend to ignore that. So, well, that got us into things. I think we should keep a strong military, but stay out of their business, let them fight it out. All those Arabs hate each other, but they hate us worse. So let them go to it.
Are you involved in any local veterans associations?
Yes. I belong to too many. Well, local at home, I belong to the DAV, the American Legions of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Right now. I used to be real active when I was younger in the DAV, which is the Disabled Veterans, and now they closed up ours because we had some guys mismanaging it, and so they have it over in Monterey, and I've never even been. My friend, a good friend of mine, belongs to it too. Neither one of us have been over there, but we're pretty active in the VFW, and they've kind of given up for members too. So we have a luncheon meeting at their Veterans Memorial Building in Spreckles, which is right close to Salinas, and so when you meet during the day, well, they said before they couldn't get enough guys at night because they didn't want to drive at night. Well, when you meet during the day, you're not going to get any young people in. So we normally don't have over 20 people there. And we have have a meeting and have lunch. And it's almost a social gathering as much as anything.
There's nothing wrong with that. Are the ones that are coming, are they from all branches of service, or are they
yeah, they're all branches, yes.
So do you have male and female coming, or it's
No,
just...
we don't have any female. American Legion has some females. But I
Okay.
remember in the DAV we didn't have any.
What do you think about women joining the military?
It doesn't send me very much. I think they ought to stay home. I think the same thing about the National Guard. They're pretty much useless in combat. We had National Guard by us a couple of times, and they were they got rid of them pretty quick. In Okinawa, they couldn't maintain their place on the lines, and we never even know what they did with them, but they pulled them off and got rid of them. But then they were the same outfit that collapsed at Saipan when the Japanese attacked them, and there was 2 Marine divisions in the Army, but the National Guard in the middle, and they collapsed, and actually the Marine artillery behind them stopped the charge. And I don't know where the National Guard went, but Okinawa, they lost 60 tanks in one deal. They tried to cross an airfield, and they started getting shelled, and they got out and ran and left their tanks. And some of them, the Japanese got in and drove them off. So that's what I say. They belong here. They belong taking care of guarding our country, taking care of floods and catastrophes and so forth. They don't belong over there.
Do you
If you want women in there, it's fine, but I don't believe in women in combat at all.
Do you find that those that have come home that are veterans, that they're not getting what they need, or...
Well, I hear that, but I don't know because I don't know that many of them.
Okay. Have you gone to any of the veterans hospitals since you've been back from the war to visit with other veterans, or...
Well, I was in old Oakland. After the war, I was in for 3 months in the Oakland Navy Hospital, which was the old Hotel Oakland. And when I spent 3 months in there for my back, and I was in what they call a spiker cast from my neck to my knees for 12 weeks. And I was in this old hotel. We were in a bigger room. Must have been a suite. There was 6 of us in there, and we were all in the same boat. So I got to know those guys real well. They were all from different services, and most of them were World War II veterans, because this was in '49, right after the war. Then I've been in where? Oh, I was in Letterman Hospital before that. They sent me in an emergency. That was in San Francisco, and I spent a month in there, and they didn't do. That was an Army hospital. They didn't do me any good. So I went to the Veterans Hospital, and they were much better in Oakland. And so,
Well, it has been a very much of a pleasure meeting you and hearing your story.
yeah.
And we wish you the best.
Okay. Well, thank you.